Hey everyone, I'm Rather Incoherent, and this is the Marie Lambeau deck that I just finished Dunwich Legacy with. I played on standard difficulty in the Return to set, and as this one-of recharge might give away, I was playing alongside a Jacqueline Fine. That video series is up on the channel if you want to go see how this character played. But honestly, this is less of a Marie review and more of a back to the drawing board video where I explain why I need to play Marie again in the future. The idea behind the deck is straightforward. Marie gets extra actions with Doom, which David Renfield and Arcane Initiate give her, and they're the best Doom cards, generally speaking. Use Calling in Favors to cycle them out once they're dangerous for Seeker allies that give Book. Use the Book to investigate with my 4 Book. Use my Doom bonus actions to play these spells out, and use them to fight. It's a pretty cool idea for a True Flex Investigator. And if you watch that campaign, it just almost never happened. There were like a couple of moments in the last 3 scenarios where it finally started fitting together. And a big part of why is something that's not immediately obvious looking at this deck. Like, you might have problems with it, but the big problem is not immediately obvious at all. None of Marie's abilities do anything unless there are enemies to fight. And if you hold David Renfield with no way to kill him, that feels pretty YOLO when you have so many other good setup turns you can have. You could mulligan away your YOLO David play looking for a Milan or a Kirby that can just give you immediate value and be good and correct. So what ends up happening in the mulligan phase is a very natural thing. You very rarely want to hold David because with low Doom thresholds and no obvious way to kill him, it just makes more sense to mulligan for your book stuff and investigate using that. But when I do this, the whole concept falls apart. If I'm spending my opening money on Milan or Kirby, I don't have money to play these assets. I don't have Doom to trigger Marie. The whole deck just doesn't work if you mulligan like that, even though it feels like that's the intuitive way to mulligan is to get your book stuff early because there's no one to fight yet. In the latter half of the campaign, I realized that. I held YOLO David at least twice. I held a Calling in Favors with a Jeremiah Kirby, so I could play Kirby, draw cards, and then Calling in Favors him out just to look for anyone else, a Doom ally, a Milan, anything. And I ended up not playing the Calling in Favors because of what I drew off of Jeremiah Kirby, making it very unlikely that the Calling in Favors would actually help me and not just put me in a situation where I had 4 book and no money. And when I say this is more of a back to the drawing board than a review, I do mean that. This isn't even the drawing board. This is just like an announcement that I need to find a better Marie deck, and I don't know where to start. Because when I was thinking about Marie, right after I finished Dunwich, I started to realize, like, oh, I should have played Practice Makes Perfect in Induction. I don't know why I didn't do that. Do I even run 2 copies of Deep Knowledge? Why am I not running 2 copies of Deep Knowledge? I don't ever need the second Arcane asset, so maybe I can run Feed the Mind. I have all these thoughts that are really good things that Marie can do. And then I open the deck up and I remember Marie Lambeau doesn't get 10 Seeker cards like Gloria or Tony or Mandy would. She gets 5 cards from Seeker and or Survivor. And with only 5 cards from Seeker, I don't know that you can make this book investigating thing work very well. I'm not actually sure after playing Marie whether or not I want to investigate with book. It seems like a fundamentally strong idea, but then when you play this deck, it just sort of feels incredibly janky and like nothing quite fits together right, even though the idea seems smooth at first. Right now, if there's a way to build Marie where you actually make use of this 4 book stat, I can't see it. I feel like it should exist, but I don't know how you actually investigate without getting some plus book from these guys. So I think if Marie Lambeau is able to be a good investigator, it has to involve a Hawkeye folding camera in your hand slots. You cut one of these allies for that. And in fact, I think you cut both of them for that. And you run like Deep Knowledge and Feed the Mind. Probably 1 of Deep Knowledge, 2 of Feed the Mind. I'm gonna look at that for a hot second. Even when I was saying that, as soon as I cloned the deck and made it, I realized I don't have the slots for it. I need to cut Milan if I want to run Feed the Mind and Deep Knowledge. And Feed the Mind isn't a head test, it's a book test. So you just keep hitting this situation where you don't have enough card slots for all the yellow things you want. And even then, like, who cares if I can investigate with book? If I'm just testing at like +2 to +3 to get 1 clue in action, that's fine, but who cares, right? That's my overwhelming experience with Marie. It's fine, she's carrying her weight, but nothing about this is excelling in the way that it felt like it could. I think this is the only character I've ever played that at no point during the campaign felt the way I had envisioned them. Even when I was playing a terrible support Jenny with Charles Ross, even when I was playing support Clover tank Sister Mary, those characters still had moments where I felt like I was doing what I wanted to do and a huge part of the team. Marie Lambeau just felt like she was tagging along for the ride with Jacqueline. That has just been overwhelmingly how she felt. I can't remember a single moment in the campaign where Jacqueline was in trouble or not doing her job and Marie was the reason we were okay. But like every scenario, Marie was struggling because she was just like bleeding health and damage for no reason. And that's variance. It could have just as easily happened to Jacqueline. But all the same, it happened to Marie every scenario. It's capable of happening to her. She never felt powerful. She never felt like her deck clicked. And I know a lot of this is on me. That's why this is back to the drawing board and not a review. But I'm not sure how you get to the point where this works. I would love to see other people's deck lists to hear what you're doing with your 5 Seeker cards in the comments. Hawkeye Folding Camera has to be one of them. It's something I'm just like very clear on right now. But even as I say that, like it's not actually set in stone in any way. A Hawkeye Folding Camera has insane competition. Milan, Christopher, Deep Knowledge, Practice Makes Perfect, Deduction, Feed the Mind. Like Feed the Mind's a serious consideration, and it's only like something I'm hesitant about because you only get 5 fucking Seeker cards. And you might be able to hear that I'm a little bit frustrated. And I'm not frustrated with the character or the game. I'm frustrated with myself because like, it feels like there's something here and I just cannot find it. Right now, I do think that Marie had a bad campaign. That the way my draw sequenced and the way I played her was suboptimal. And she should have done better than she did in my campaign, even with all the problems I've talked about in this deck. I think the way that she performed in my campaign is like a high C tier character. And to remind you that in C tier, in my mind, is a character that's fine. They do their job. She carried her weight, just nothing more than that. But I do think that in spite of all evidence to the contrary in that Dunwich campaign, that between my bad piloting and bad deck building, because it does feel like a lot of Marie's underperformance is on me, she probably is a low B tier character. I can't see how she gets much higher than that, but she is probably like legitimately good. Not amazing, but legitimately good. And I do think she has like one of the cooler level 0 decks. I'm sure I wouldn't build it like this again if I played it, but I love the way this level 0 deck looks. I think I was the biggest fan of Marie in Scenario 0, and that makes sense, or Scenario 1 rather. Because at Scenario 1, she had 7 book. And at Scenario 8, she had 7 book too. It just mattered a whole lot less in Scenario 8. I'm not quite sure what I should have done with Marie. Whether I should have just committed to being a mystic and been sad about my 4 wasted stats in book, or if there was a better way to rely on my book. But I am sure that I underperformed, that she's a little bit better than she looks like she was in my Dunwich campaign. I do like Marie though. Even though I don't think it's worth the trouble at all, I think she was a really cool character. I think if I played her again, I'd enjoy it again. But I wouldn't want to play her two-handed. I'd want to play in someone else's team so I could focus more on what I was doing as Marie and less on the other mystic I'm playing alongside her that's doing the exact same thing better. But we'll talk about Jacqueline fine tomorrow. I think that's really all I had to say. I've mostly summarized why I feel good and bad simultaneously about Marie. She is, in my opinion, the first failed deck on the channel, a character that didn't meet the expectation I set for them in any capacity, which is unfortunate, but it was going to happen eventually. Anyways, if you like this sort of content, then like, comment, and subscribe. All of that really helps the channel grow, and I'll see you in the next one.